Hello, hello. This is a overview of using the Cincinnati Board's listing agreement, the exclusive right to sell. And just want to run through, do a screen share with you in advance. I do apologize. I am not trying to be something that I'm obviously not, to show off my muscles. I've got poison ivy, my ongoing battle with the stuff. So the ointment that I have on there, I don't want to ruin my pretty shirt. Anyway, all right, let's get the screen share going. Screen share. Open, says me. Minimize this. All right, this should look familiar. I'm going to show you this via dot loop. State broker at the time of this recording does have a company dot loop that is set up that could potentially save you some money until the time where Fathom has its own signature program rolling. So anyway, name of brokerage. Yeah. All right. Fathom. The thing about this is officially it's Fathom Realty Ohio, LLC. If you want to be that detailed, that's fine. Otherwise, Fathom Realty, according to the broker, is fine. And then the question comes up, where is Fathom Realty? Well, in greater Cincinnati, we are connected to the broker's main office in Columbus. So officially, that has to be where the brokerage office is located, which would be Columbus. All right. As far as, this is just saying the start date and then the expiration date. So very simple on that. When this is starting. And the thing I don't like about this, until midnight. Midnight is a very debated issue. Is midnight belong to the day that is ending or to the day that's beginning? I think it should be 11:59 p.m., but they didn't call and ask me. Anyway, and explaining that to the seller, just simply say, it's going to go until the end of the day of whatever date that you put in here. Obviously, the address, city or township. Note on this, per the MLS rules and guidelines, if you put a city in there, the property must be within the actual geographic boundaries of that city. It can't be the mailing address. So if the mailing address, the house is sitting outside of the actual boundaries, but it has the post office delivery route for that particular town, it must be the township that the house is in, unless it's actually within the boundaries of that municipality. Anyway, yes, include the property identification number. You can get that off Realist or off the county website. Easiest route is Realist. Obviously, how much is it going on the market for? Debate. It used to be, you'd hear a lot of agents say, well, we're going to play with the 300 mark, so we're putting it on the market for $299, $999, trying to steal something from the gas stations. That worked before the internet really got its grip on the way users, home shoppers are looking for properties. Properties are now being searched for in increments of $5,000. So my encouragement, make that an increment of $5,000. Put it as 300,000 even. That way, people searching up to 300,000 will find it. People starting at 300,000 will find it. Otherwise, if you put it as $299.9, people that are starting to search 300,000, even though it is very close to the same price, are not going to see it because computers say it's a 0 or it's a 1. It's false or it's true, one or the other. All right. In dealing with what is in the property, if it's nailed, screwed, glued to the property, it is considered part of the property. A lamp sitting on a table or a table is not obviously attached. Window blinds are attached. Yes, toilets are attached. Not sure why we have garbage disposals listed as personal property items because they're attached too. But if it's nailed to, glued, screwed to the property, it's considered attached. Where this comes into play, two key areas. Number one, Aunt Susie's custom built little knickknack shelf that has screws through it into the wall. That's an attachment. It needs to either A, be removed now before showings start, or B, you have to make sure that when the purchase contract comes in that that is excluded in there if the sellers are not going to take it down. Nailed, glued, screwed, it's an attachment. If they want to take it with, remove it. And here it explains a little bit more about wiring and whatnot for speakers and things to that extent. Let's see here. Appliances were added, which is a mistake. They did not call and ask my opinion again, but appliances are personal property items, but the committee decided to add them in here. Ranges, ovens, microwaves, refrigerators, dishwashers are now included in the listing agreement. If the sellers are not going to be leaving that, make sure that is scratched and initialed by all parties or by the sellers. All right, things specifically excluded. That's where Aunt Susie's shelf would go in. Other items included for the property. Let's say they've got an extra freezer downstairs, or there's a pool table they do not want to haul out of the basement. Those are things that can be considered as included that would be put into this spot. And the trick is, and explain this to the sellers, this does not determine what goes and what stays. What determines what goes and what stays is the purchase contract. The purchase contract is the agreement between the seller and the buyer. This is explained that this listing agreement is simply a marketing agreement. All the details of the sale are what's between the buyer and seller on that purchase contract. All right, moving right along, possession and occupancy. It's worthwhile stopping and touching. They've added some bold comments in here talking about if the seller doesn't move out when the seller is supposed to move out and giving occupancy to the buyer, there are legal ramifications that will likely follow. I've never had that in my line as being an issue, but does it happen? Yes. All right, seller's certification. To the best of seller's knowledge, like on the property disclosure, I'm tell the sellers they're not expected to be omniscient or have x-ray vision to be able to see inside the walls. What they know to be true is what is being asked for. And on the property disclosure, state property disclosure goes the route of saying if this is a current problem but not longer than 5 years ago. If there is something that the sellers know that existed previous to 5 years, put it in there. It's the old saying is better usually to over disclose than under disclose, and I find buyers appreciate that. If there's a water stain mark or something that came from 10 years ago, well, they're going to see the water stain mark. Put it in the property disclosure. Answer the question before it can be asked. Same idea here. To the best of their knowledge, is it historic districts, lease, public work orders that are on it? Does it have shared driveways? If it does, listing agent, get on top of that. Find out where the agreements are ahead of time for the maintenance of that shared driveway, party walls or otherwise. If you're working with older home sellers, double check Realist to see if they've got a homestead exemption logged in there, and then you best make sure that that homestead exemption is mentioned in the purchase contract as well. Property disclosure, we touched on that. Homeowner association, this is another thing that the sellers need to understand and get them working on now. They have to provide, and depending upon the mortgage company and sometimes the fine focus of the buyer, HOA documents, restrictions, what the last board minutes were, financials, anything and everything that owner is responsible at their expense to provide to the buyer. So get that ball rolling. Sometimes you can get a PDF of the HOA and restrictions and put them into the MLS as additional documents so that they are there. Let's see, any known assessments, and then who has to sign for the property to sell. If it's husband and wife that own the property and the husband or the wife individually is saying, well, I can sell it if the other one's name is on there, unless they have a durable power of attorney, both names need to be on there. Both signatures need to be on there. There would never be anybody try to pull a fast one on a spouse or soon to be ex-spouse. I mean, that just never happens. All right, taxes and assessments. Everything prorated from the day of closing up to the day of closing from the last tax bill. In Ohio, we're always 6 months behind on our tax bill. So that proration in Greater Cincinnati, the only exception in the area is really Montgomery County, and they're unique. But it's going to be 6 months worth of taxes plus the number of days from the last tax bill. So you know, that you can give them an estimate on what that will look like depending upon what the closing day ends up being. But that way they have at least an idea. Realtor's commission, if it's a dollar amount or percentage. Some agents will add a what's called, they call a transaction fee. Do not call it a transaction fee. What I would recommend doing on that, like for example, some agents will charge for sellers 6% plus $300 to cover whatever. Some agents in Fathom I've heard will do the 6% plus $500 to cover the transaction fee for Fathom. So in that situation, do two things. Number one, put the 500 here or whatever the amount is, scratch or and put and make sure that the sellers initial that, and then the percentage. All right, do not call it a transaction fee. Department of Justice came down on that several years ago. It has to be, here's your commission package. It's not that it's a separate charge, but it's all inclusive as part of the commission. Protection period, this is simply to say if a buyer comes in to purchase the home who found out about it during the listing period, they're considered as part of this listing agreement. I usually put 90 days. Is there a particular right number? And then being authorized to pay whatever percentage. A lot of times you will see 3%, sometimes 2.5%. Rule of thumb has been 3, but 2.5 has been popping up. But you know, your business, that's one thing. Make sure this is a total listing commission, not just the listing side, but listing and selling side. Don't put 3% here, 3% here, and say, oh, that totals 6. Nope. 6% goes here, and out of that, 3% or whatever you have set up goes to the buyer's brokerage. Civil rights, MLS authority. Side note, personal bugaboo, everything goes to Zillow. And what does Zillow have? Zestimate. You know, it sounds like a mouthwash. Anyway, right here, it talks about automated valuation model. Even Realist has an estimated valuation that is in it. To say no, the MLS should not be sharing that information to places like Zillow. I just go, yes, 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 yes. Subject to short sale? No. That way you can do blogging. There's no problem with it going to Zillow if that brings you a buyer for your sellers, and show the internet on the address on the internet. Yeah, that helps. Some buyers or some sellers don't like that, but here it is. If you have someone who just wants to keep it a secret and they want to have it as a secret listing, not let anyone in internet land know about it, then it goes to no. My question is, there may be situations where that is an advantageous thing to do. But why? Anyway, signs. I like to stop at this point. You know, I have fun with this, my personality. I say, one of our secret weapons, Mr. Seller or Mrs. Seller, we're going to put a sign in your front yard. Ooh. Someone somewhere at some time had an issue, hence we got an idiot paragraph in here. I like to either on signs or key access authorization, bring out the point that whenever someone comes to tour the home, they are considered as an invited guest. And as such, if in the very unlikelihood something happens to them while on their property as an invited guest, homeowner insurance needs to be kept in place to cover anything that was unintentional, trip or whatever. Encourage your sellers to keep their homeowners insurance in place. Sellers cooperation, I like to call this one of the big dumb clauses, stupid clauses. I still don't understand why this is here. Someone explained it to me once. It went in one ear and out the other, but it's just simply, I can imagine some seller said, I want you to sell my house, but don't bother me with showings. Anyway, it's there. Key authorization. All right. This is reflected in the newer purchase contract, but this is you getting permission up front for non-licensed individuals to have access. Appraisers, inspectors, if the buyer comes with the inspector. That way it's all out in the open. And this is also many times reflected in the purchase contract as well. Yeah, this is a good little phrase that they put in here. Seller's responsibility to remove or secure valuables on the real estate, gun collections, jewelry, drugs, the big three. Audio surveillance devices, this is another addition to it. In the state of Ohio, to watch, not a problem. To listen is a problem unless at least one person in that party has given permission in writing for their conversations to be listened to. Sellers should not be listening to people walking through their home. They're allowed to watch. I discourage it from the viewpoint of if you're a home buyer and you feel that the sellers are spying on you. All right. Anyway, nanny cams are everywhere. Ernest, might you have a chance to explain that home warranty? Does the seller want to provide a home warranty or not? I think it's in the seller's best interest to provide it up front for two reasons. If the buyer moves in and something isn't working, you didn't tell me that this isn't working anymore. It may have been working fine for the seller and the buyer moved in, pushed the wrong button, who knows? But then the seller can say, I paid for a home warranty for you, use it, bye. And the other aspect of it is usually home warranty companies have different layers or levels of coverage. This allows the opportunity for the seller to provide a lower cost home warranty coverage if they choose to go that route. Owner's title insurance, 99% of homeowners have no idea if they have title insurance or not. And, well, it's not a big issue. Sometimes that can be used to help reduce closing costs for the new buyer. But if they know, great. If they don't know, next. Agency relationships, dual agency relationships. You know, Fathom does not encourage, in fact, discourages dual agency, does not forbid. Be very, very careful. Explain to your sellers up front. Matter of fact, State Broker likes to use this as a springboard. He will tell listing agent or listing sellers that he will never do dual agency. He only wants to represent them. And if a buyer comes in who is not represented and chooses not to be represented, commission will be reduced to whatever percent, whatever, maybe 3 total percent or 4%, something to that extent. But dual agency, know your laws on this. You're in no way allowed to compromise one side or the other. It is as if there are two agents working the transaction. I will tell you, majority of time, if someone's going to get miffed that they think maybe they weren't treated correctly, it'll be the buyer. And even if you documented everything and done everything correctly, if that buyer files a complaint or even worse, files suit, even though you're innocent, guess who gets to spend time with attorneys? Guess who gets to spend time in court? It's just, if at all possible, avoid it. Indemnity by the seller. I like this one. It is another major stupid clause. All right. It just says you as an agent are relying on the seller's information. If the seller should give you bad information or worse yet, lie to you, and you as an agent act on it, they're not allowed to sue you. Sign language for stupid. All right. You're allowed as an agent to disclose non-confidential information. The way I explain this, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, if a buyer's agent or buyer comes up and asks, why are you selling this home? I shrug my shoulders. I play stupid. My generation understands who Sergeant Schultz is. I know nothing. They're looking to take advantage of an opportunity. You like the house? Let's write an offer. Or write an offer. Additional terms and conditions. You know, this is where, if talking about dual agency and an unrepresented buyer, and this is where you would write in those kind of items. If buyer chooses to remain unrepresented and the listing agent is the sole agent involved in this transaction, total commission will be whatever. Sole contract. Is the seller allowed or not allowed to get into listing agreements? Well, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you're not interested in leasing your house, are you? Okay. Is prohibited, you know, just it's the reverse way of phrasing it, but that's the idea. Electronic signatures are considered fine. Wire fraud, as the sellers, I'll explain, this probably will not come into play, but if ever you receive an email from me or a message from me with wiring instructions, it is bogus. I will never send you wiring instructions. In fact, if at any point in this transaction you have to wire funds for one reason or another, call the title company. If it's the title company, confirm the wiring instructions, give the title company's name to your bank, and before they wire them, have them call and confirm with the title company that that's the correct wiring, so that your money, Mr. or Mrs. Seller, does not end up overseas somewhere. All right, seller's acknowledgement. This is the attorney's advertisement clause, being a legal document. If they have any legal questions, consult their attorney. Oh, silly me. All right. And then as far as by signing this stupid clause, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, by signing this, you are saying you have legal authority to sell this property. They never call me and ask me what should be in these things. Anyway, and then one of my big boo-boos is so many times I forget to sign the contract myself. So make sure you get that there. And that's the ins and the outs and the fun stuff and going along with this. I hope you had a good time. Take care.